Yeah. Yeah. No,
That's
that's
why
fair.
that's why I call bullshit on your example. Because as you become more free, you become more problematic.
Mm.
We are almost two different races. Our black women are women.
Yeah.
We can't make a demand. We can't even ask you to smile. But you want us to protect you. Black men don't want to hear that. That we don't belong because you don't expect every man to protect you. When somebody's going upside your head, you ain't asking Brad, Lee, Ahmed, Enrique, protect us. You asking a black man to protect you.
You're right.
So we
You're
don't give a
absolutely
shit if you
right.
don't feel like you belong to anybody else. White women do white women act like they belong to white men? Yes
Yes.
or no? Do Hispanic women act like they belong to Hispanic men?
Absolutely.
Do Asian women act like they belong to Asian men?
Definitely.
Do Middle Eastern women act like they belong to Middle Eastern men?
Yes.
Do black women act like they belong to black men?
By and large, no. But
See, the
those
fact that you had to even
we
put a modifier on there says you are still conflicted with the reality you are seeing. There was no modifier ever before black people. No,
you're
no modifier.
100%.
And see, that's the
100%.
problem. And that's the problem because it is going to come down to women checking women and getting you guys straight. We cannot fix you because you have no respect for us. You only
Mm,
respect each other. And if we can't rely
mm.
on the educated of you and the intelligent of you and the learned of you to at least be honest, black men will sit back saying, who the fuck can we rely on? Honestly.
Yeah.
Because
No, yeah, I
I'm
mean,
saying that men can't, black men are just asking black women to be nice to us.
hmm
That's it. Just be
hmm
nice to us. And they can't get that in mass on a regular basis. I don't know if you ladies really understand how bad it is.
yeah, yeah.
The clip that you just heard was from Kevin Samuel's broadcast entitled, Are Black Women Still Out of Order? And in this particular clip, we can actually put the link will be in the description. You can actually go back and see Kevin actually engaging with a licensed therapist. And like I said, it didn't go well. But the thing is, she was honest enough to actually reveal how black women really think about us. And the most she could say was that's fair. It's actually a 20-minute segment, and I may have taken like 2.5 minutes out of it. So it wouldn't be fair to judge the whole entire broadcast on that little small clip. But I didn't want to bog down the whole video with a very long clip. So I played that particular clip because it was significant to me. And it went to the heart of what we're dealing with as far as black men and our relationship with black women, especially during the modern era, since now they're not tied to us by circumstances or environment. Basically, they're free to do whatever they want. And unfortunately, their true nature and the true nature how they feel about us is coming out. So that's why that particular segment actually jumped out at me. But it's nothing that I haven't heard or haven't seen or haven't discussed on my channel or heard other women discuss on their channel. In fact, Concrete Rose and Sister George basically said the same thing like a few days before. So it's not really unusual, but the thing is to hear them actually admit it. But it got me to thinking, since I've been reading a lot of so-called black books. I've been reading a lot of slave history and early American history and things about debt and stuff like that that's been circulating, and basically how capitalism was built. But the thing is that it also gives us a clue about how this unusual creature or unusual culture called the Negro culture was actually formed. And since our men and women that are make up what we call the ADOS or Negro race, as we call it, are not organic. They were actually formed and actually cultured by white capitalists for obvious reasons, to work and make a profit. So our women do not feel for us the same way that other groups of women feel for us. We have a completely different socialization, a completely different agreement, a completely different bond than other women that organically grew out of their landmass, right? We don't have that. We are a people inside of a people, almost like a hybrid African created by white slave owners. But it got me to thinking, because I was actually scanning a book. I glanced at a section that caught my eye, and the book is called Crisis in Black Sexual Politics by Nathan and Julia Hare, right? It's a compilation of different authors. But this particular section caught my eye. I think it's called The Myths That Black Women Believe About Black Men. But it gives a good glimpse into the female mind, or the female culture post-feminism. So what I wanted to do is take a clip out of this book and read the sections, a couple of sections, and then, where it goes from there, only God knows, right? So we're gonna read this section. So the first section of this particular chapter that caught my eye, one of the first myths that caught my eye, is I am female first and black second, which is something that I've heard not only feminists but also womanists, so-called the upscale version of a feminist, more woke version of feminists that believe that they don't want to take on the white line. And something that Kevin said about this being two different races jumped out at me when I actually read this, right? So I'm going to read this. I am female first and black second. Since the upsurge of the feminist movement of the late 60s and early 70s, many black women adopted the notion that they needed to be liberated as women from the oppression of men. For the black women, this entailed liberating herself from the oppression of black men, as well as the sexism of white men. For the underlying assumption is that all men, both black and white, are sexist and chauvinistic. Therefore, many women adopted the view that they are female first and black second. Remember the Ice Cube and the Fox Queens, right? What about black women, right? On the other hand, there were black females who did not separate sexism from racism. They saw themselves as being oppressed because they were female and oppressed because they were black, and they were unable to separate the differences between the two. Consequently, they adopted the view of the feminists that they were female first and placed their social or ethnic identity second. As we take a closer look, however, we will find that the dynamics involved in the white female's oppression are different from the dynamics involved in the black female's oppression by her man in white society. And this is an important key. First of all, the white female only debates the question of her role as a female in relationship to her oppression and need not be faced with the question of race. In other words, she need not delineate whether she's a female first or white second, for she can look primarily at the role of oppression in direct relationship to her femininity. At the same time, the white female is only concerned about her role of oppression as it relates to the white male. This is not true for the black female, for she must correlate the oppression she receives from a white male-dominated society to both her race and her sexual identity. And they talk about a white male-dominated society. Now, talk about black male-dominated society, right? At the same time, the black woman must be concerned about the oppression she experiences as a black female with her black man. However, the difficulties of oppression black females experience in a relationship with the black males is minimal compared to the problems black females face in a white dominated society. Minimal. And guess what? Remember when the Kevin was asking the therapist, do all the other women act like they belong to their men, right? Do they act like they belong to their men? And the white women was first. Do white women act like they belong to their men? Yes. This is in 1989. This book was printed in 1989, so it was written probably before that, right? This is in the 80s. And what they're saying is white women do not have that conundrum. They don't believe that. There is no difference. There's no female first and white second like the black female. In fact, that's how come white females have no problem even being feminists, if fighting sexism, as they call it, with allying and actually being and supporting and depending on her men. and belonging to their men. Only the black Negro female believes that, right? Which you saw in spades on Kevin's show on Friday. And this is not recent, right? This is 30 some odd years ago. This is not yesterday. This is not last year. This is well before we had the Black Manosphere. In fact, it might be before some of you guys were born. That's recent. And they're talking about what they saw in the 80s. We're not talking about what they saw in the 2000s. It's only gotten worse. But this is the seed. Black women do not believe that they belong to us. In fact, I've always said it. Black women believe that we belong to them, but not the other way around. And that's how come they can't be nice to you, because they believe that you're beneath them. That's how come every other woman believes that she belongs to her man and vice versa, right? Except for whom? The black woman. That's how come she choked on it, because she knows the truth. Because she's seen people come in her office with the same kind of bullshit, right? The same BS. And she wanted to lie, but she knew that she's going to get caught because she's in public. She had to tell the truth. She's on the stand. So what she did is verify what this lady wrote. Because even though it's a myth, this is how most black women think. There's more of them. I'm actually going to do a full review of this particular chapter on my BGS IBMOR channel. But there's one more section I want to get to, and then we're going to comment fully and go into either rant or ramble, however this is going to turn out. Because I have a feeling there's going to be some heat coming. Here's a second myth that black women believe, okay? And this is, we've all seen it, so I don't even have to say what it is. We've all seen it, we've all experienced it, which is the reason that most black women don't want to be led by us. They believe that they're strong and independent. And this kind of gives you a clue or a peek into why that is, right? And I'm going to read this, and basically it, you know, if you're older than 40, you should have seen this. You might still see it. You might still see it. And I know black men that date white women, they see it too, as far as interacting with the white dominant power structure, right? Okay. And this is actually comes from the relationship that black women had with the white society, the white slave society, right? Rather than black men, because black men were always dangerous, and black women actually brought over here as concubine, okay, to produce children and produce offspring for the white slave master. So they have a different relationship. But I'm going to read this. Black women are stronger than black men. Everybody's heard this, right? Everybody heard this, and this is they're in spades in the younger generation, in the millennials and the Z's. It's really there in spades, because I've heard this spoken out loud by the younger black women for the last 20 years. It makes your jaw drop. There are several interpretations of black history from slavery to the present time, which suggest that black women are stronger than black men. That is, black women are dominant in the rearing of children, supporting the family, resisting the forces of racism they face in their everyday lives, collaborating with the white bill collectors and salesmen, and making decisions in the family while the black male sits back passively. And I do believe this. It is not the purpose here to engage in the futile dialogue, for ultimately the man is no stronger than his woman, and the woman is no stronger than the man. The two must operate as a reciprocal unit for the survival of each other, then children, and ultimately for the survival and liberation of the black masses. It is true that black women have played a significant role under the oppression of slavery and white racism in America, and that oppression is still alive today. Some would suggest that the black woman is more oppressed because she is faced with the double jeopardy of racism and sexism. However, the fact remains that racism still exists, and neither the black man nor the black female is a separate or collective entity that has been successful in alleviating racism. Consequently, it is a moot point to engage in dialogue about who is stronger or who is weaker. This is similar to the fruitless dialogue of the 60s during the height of the black liberation movement, when blacks engaged in the blacker than thou syndrome. Thus, blacks are competing to demonstrate who was blacker than whom, while racism and white supremacy reigns in their midst. But the thing is that everybody remembers, and this is something that was key in Du Bois's Philadelphia Negro, well, where what black men could not always directly interface with hostile white men and a hostile power structure. And many times black mothers has gone out to beg for their son's life or beg for their son to get a job because black women are actually listened to because they were wet nurses for a lot of these kids. Okay. A lot of these kids were the Maria of today, where little white kids would call their black nanny or their black maid mama. I remember in the 70s, and when I was visiting the South, man, it struck me that most of the black female anchors were black. I mean, most of the anchors in the southern news stations were black, older black females, which shocked me because in the 70s, in Los Angeles, most of the female anchors were white. Y'all had almost no black female anchors in the West. You know, in the West and the North, there was almost no black female anchors. But in the South, every station had the head anchor was a white male and a black female. They had no black male reporters. So the strong black woman comes from this idea, comes from this reality, because just guess what? It was easier for the black female to go and talk to the white man. It was easier for the black female to go to the landowner if you were sharecropping. It was easier for them to go to negotiate a bill with the white store owners. In fact, when I was coming up, a lot of your black females were the ones that actually paid the bills and interfaced with the shop owners and interfaced with the salesmen. And when they actually went out and bought things, you always had to take your black wife. Very difficult for black men to go out shopping or interfacing with a business by himself. It was always going to be difficult. It's always easier to have a black woman with you. You know, this was up through the 70s and sometimes into the 80s. Okay. And this is where this strong black woman leading the family actually came from, even though she didn't. Even though it was a black man that earned the money and brought it home and took care of the family financially. But the thing is according to them, since they had an easier time interfacing with the white community, guess what? They thought they were strong, independent, and leading, and basically we were an appendage to them. And that idea and that sentiment still exists. To most black women, basically black men are a necessary evil. We're an appendage. We're something to be acquired, which is why you have a lot of false pregnancies and stuff like that. It's something to trap you into being a ConcuServe, as Dr. Johnson said. You're there to serve her and her children. And that idea still persists. Look at, since we're talking about Kevin, look at all these women lining up, coming in and with nothing to offer. He asked them, what do they have to offer? Nothing to have to offer. They're coming there to acquire a man, a high value man, as they say, even though they don't have anything to offer a high value man. In other words, they don't believe they're coming in to serve a high value man because he earns so much money, is because he is so successful. They're there because they believe they can get a high value man to serve them. And this is where it comes from. Like I said, I didn't write this. This is actually written by a woman. I'll actually put you the link to the book in the description. You can go read it for yourself. It's on page 82. Starts at page 82. In fact, like I said, I'm going to go over the whole chapter because I think the whole chapter was insignificant. There's some things that I disagree with in the chapter, but the thing is, and guess what they do? Because she's a woman, she tries to soften it. She tries to soften this myth. She tried to soften and make black women not look bad. But you know, when I read it, I knew it was the truth because I lived this shit. I lived this. I lived this as a boy. I lived this as a young man. And I know what she is saying is the truth because I was a little boy in the 60s. I was a teenager in the 70s, and I was a grown man in the 80s. I came of age in the 80s. And this is the kind of stuff, the underlying thoughts and feelings that was going on then. They wouldn't say it out loud. They wouldn't say it in public, you know, because the old air our dirty laundry. They didn't want to be embarrassed. I played a clip of the strong black woman in one of my earlier videos, something that was broadcast in 1968. This is not new. And the thing is that black women still want to lie about it, that it don't exist while they're still doing it. Like Kevin says, we can't even ask our women to smile. We can't even ask our women to be nice to us. And the only way they think they're halfway going to be nice to us if we earn $300,000, $400,000, $500,000. How many black men can do that? How many men in America, period, can do that? Like I said, Enrique is dirt poor coming across the border from Mexico and gets more respect and better treatment from his woman. I know that because the young lady that I know that I buy my lotto tickets from at the liquor store, right? She's got a young man, okay? He's got a minimum wage job. He's got just a minimum wage regular job, right? She damn near worships him. She damn near worships him. He's not 6 feet tall. Okay, he don't have a 9-inch Johnson. He's not wealthy. Dude is like 5'5". I mean, she's 5'2", but he's 5'5". He's not a 6'4" monster with a ton of swag and his pockets are fat. Yet she admits she belongs to him. When she sees him, she's smiling. When she sees him, she's feminine. When she sees him, you can see the respect in her eyes. And he, like I said, he's not balling out of control. He's a regular dude. And for black women, he'd be below average. And this is what Kevin was trying to talk about. But you have to be, hell, you can be a high value man. Look at Sweetie and Quavo. Did that look like Sweetie was being nice to him? Putting him on blast about how much money he spent on her? Dude spent $1 million on her. And she talks to him like he's disposable. And then when he tried to leave because it was over, she want to swing on him. Does that sound like women that belong to you? Or does that sound like you belonging to them? And that whole night on Friday, I don't know what got into Kevin, because Kevin is normally more composed. Well, for whatever reason, Kevin, he channeled his inner BGS, which is why you can't do that all the time, right? That's why Kevin is a perfect person, because that's me all the time. And you're gonna scare women away if you that hard and that hard hitting all the time, right? And Kevin knows he can't do that all the time. That was a one-off. He was just sick of it. I could tell, I could see it welling up in him. He's sick of it. He said the same thing that I used to say on my women's channel. I don't care what you believe in. I don't care what your opinion is. All I want is you to tell the truth and not give me this BS and this mealy mouth stuff. I would never take that. What he did to that therapist, I used to do on a constant basis. He can't do it on a constant basis because he's gonna scare all the women off. The thing is, he had enough. And I don't blame him. I don't blame him. That's the real Kevin. Okay, trust and believe. That is the real Kevin. Kevin has to take a grip. Kevin has to compose himself, because he hears this lying BS coming out of these women's mouths night after night after night, and try to make their situation better than it is, instead of just telling the truth. Okay, whatever situation it is, whether it's good or bad, that's the situation that you're in, and nobody's really gonna judge you for being in that situation. Okay, if you're honest about it, it is what it is. Either you're gonna stay in it and be happy, or you're gonna get out of it. And I'm tired of black women trying to sell us a pig and a poke. Okay, you are not a racehorse. You're not a thoroughbred. You're a pig and a poke. Be what you are. Stop trying to make yourself better than what you are. A lot of black men already know who you are. We were raised by you. We know you have bad attitudes. We know you talk to us badly. We know that you have a low level of contempt and low level of disrespect, and sometimes even a low level of hatred for us. And all we want is some honesty. And even that segment, in fact, that whole show was really about just black women smiling and being pleasant when you're around them. And they're right. Most other races, you don't have to go through that. They're pleasant. In fact, black women used to be pleasant. You go down south, black women used to be pleasant. They were taught to speak if they encountered you on the street, to say hello and give you a smile, if nothing else. Just automatic, just common courtesy. Black women don't even want to give you common courtesy anymore. And they get mad when you don't want to approach them, when you don't want to be around them. And like I'm saying, the Z's ain't having it. They're not having it anymore. And it is what it is. You know, I'm not trying to make a big thing out of it. I'm not trying to make it more than it is. The thing is, every black man knows what it is. I don't even have to explain it. You know, even the black men that take up for the black women, they know what it is. You get them by themselves, I have to talk about their relationship, they'll say the same damn thing we're saying about it. The thing is, they're willing to put up with it, and that's fine. If black men are willing to put up with it, those are the women for you. Your crazy matches their crazy, and you guys can get together and make a life. I am happy for you, but don't lie to me about it. Don't tell me it's raining and I wake up the next morning smelling like pee. That's what I'm getting tired of. That's not rainwater that you got in that bucket. But anyway, I think this has probably gone on long enough. I think I've ran it long enough. I don't want this video to be too long, so I'm going to cut it off here. Like I said, I'm going to do a fuller reading of this chapter because it did jump out at me. You know, I was just trying to scan in some books so I can actually have material, because I want to get more into the data, as Tone Talk says. A lot of people say I don't get enough into the data, even though I got tons of it. So I want to, not just tell, but show. So this is toward the line of me showing and telling. But with that, I'm going to jump off here. This is BGS out, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.